بجزا قلتم زوجي دفين زركب زلو እግዚአብሔር ካባይ ሁሉ ይሞ ለዛዘው ዲዚአ ሲንኪያ ወይዶ
ጽንዓት ምስለ ኤርትራ መመሊሱ ይዕንብብ በደረጃ ዓለም አፍልጦ ይረክብ አለው ጀጋኑ ደቃ ንሃገርና ዝሐብኑ ብዝተፈላለዩ ዓውድታት በብሉእ ስሩሖም ዝእመኑ ባንዴራ ኤርትራ በመንበልባል ህዝቦም ዘቕስኑ ሓደ ካብኣቶም ሓያሎ መንእሰያት ኣሎ በዓል ሕጹም ማዓንጣ ፈጺሙ ዘይጸዓት ምን ተሃገሩ ክብል ዝበለ ሓፈተ ኣብ ናይ መድረኽ ኦሎምፒክ ንኤርትራ ወኪሉ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ እዋን ተሳቲፉ ብዙሕ ዘይተወርየሉ ሽሕ እኳ ብዙሕ ኣፍልጦ እንተይ ዘይረኸበ ኣብቲ ውድድር ብምስታፉ ጥራይ ንሃገርና ክብሪ ተዋህበ ኣብ ሃገርና ንዘየለ ዓይነት ስፖርት ኤርትራና በዓለም ንኽትፍለጥ ኢሉ ሓርኮትኮት ካብ ክቱር ፍቕሪ ሃገሩ ተበጊሱ ንኤርትራ ኸስምያ ብምባል ንኹሉ ተሓሒሱ ባንዴራ ኤርትራ ኣብ ዓለም ኣንበልቢሉ ተመሊሱ እዚ ተባዕ መንእሰይ ሻነን ኣበዳ ይበሃል ኣዝዩ ተሪርን ነካስ ዘይደሃል ኤርትራው ንሕን ሓቦን ካብ ገጹ ዝንበብ ውድድር ምስ ጀመረ ብቕጽበት ይሕንበብ ኣብ ልዕሊ በረድ ሸተት ምባል ወይ ከዓ ስኪንግ ዓይነት ስፖርት ተሳቲፉ ዘይበለ ነግፈረግ ኣብ ነፍሱ መውደቕቲ ኣጋጢምዎ ኽንሱ ቃንዝኡ ተጻዊሩ ውድድሩ ዝዛዘመ ንበይኑ እዩ ንሱ መበል 38 ተርታሒዙ ኤርትራን ኣፍሪቃን ዘጸውዐ ጅግና እንኮ ኮኸብ ጸሊም ኤርትራዊ ረኺቡ ዝና ቀዳማይ ተሰሪዑ ካብ ኣህጉርና ካብ ሕሉፍ ውድድሩ ተሞክሮ ኣጥርዩ ንሓድሽ ቅድድም ተቐሪቡሎ ዝያዳ ከዓይ ኣድላይ ዝኾነ ምድላዋቱ ኣጽፊፉ ንሚላኖ ኦሎምፒክ ኣለኹልኩም ይብላሎ በኣፉ ዕላምኡ መታንሸትኡ ክወቅዕ ሓገዝና የድልዮ እዩ ምብርታዕ ስለዚ ኤርትራና ብደረጃ ዓለም ክብ ንኽትብል ሕጁን ከም ሞትሩ ኣብ ጎንኻ ኣለናልካ ንበል ብዝተኻእለ መጠን ተኸፊቱ ኣብ ዘሎ ጎፋንድሚ እጃምና ነበርክት ዝላ ኸርኤና ሓደ ስጉሚ ሞራልን ስንቅን ህዝቡ ተቐኒቱ ኣብ ዓወት ከም ዝበጽሕ ከተግብሮ እዩ ክእለቱ ምልክት ጽንዓት ኢኻ ሻነን ኣበዳ ክብሪ ይግባእካ እዩ ኣንታ ጎሚዳ ኣብ ተካይዶ ስፖርታዊ ንጥፈታት ንምንኤልካ ሙሉእ ዓወት
ሰላማት ኣጋይሽና ክቡር ዕዱማትና ከመይ ቀኒኹም እዛ ግጥሚ እዚኣ ኩላ ዳርጋ ኢላታያ ግን ምሳና ሻነን ይርከባሎ ምስኡ ኸዓ ራይሊ Remy is coach we will go into English we're going to do the interview in English but ንኹልኻትኩም ኤርትራውያን ብጣዕሚ ኣብዚ እዋን እዚ ካብቲ ሓደ ጽቡቕ ዜና ናይዚ ዓመት ንብሎ ሻነን ኣበዳ ናብ ሚላኖ ኳሊፋይ ገይሩ ነጥቢ ስለ ዝረኸበ ብኡ ምኽንያት ከም ክቡር ጋሻ ኣብዚ ኣምፂናልኩም ኣለና I just said that Shannon you have now officially qualified for the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan congratulations alongside with your coach Riley and it's very very much an honor to have you both on the show. We're going to discuss this. We just did a poem for you guys in our native language and you guys heard it. It's beautifully done. With that said, welcome Shannon, welcome Riley. Let's go into discussions on what we are going to be doing in the next year before we get to Milan. Shannon, how are you? What have you been up to? Let us give us up to date. Give us update on what have you been doing the last couple of years?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting couple of years. After Beijing, I took some time, went back to school, and then in sort of last year, I started to think maybe this a possibility I could do this again. So we're still training, still keeping up with things, and this year we went all in and started training full time back in Invermere, BC. And I've been fortunate enough to have secured my qualification criteria in one discipline. We're shooting now for a second discipline. The rest of the season we'll be traveling a lot, so to get more races, more training in, and make yourself prepared for Milan 2026.
With that said, let's bring in Coach Riley. You've been with Shannon through thick and thin. We were together in Beijing, and I remember your hard work, your dedication, your knowledge of the sport, and helping Shannon in a very good way. Part of Team Eritrea. Tell us a little bit about what have you been doing, Coach Riley?
Basically following Shannon around. Yeah, first worked with him in 2022, so it's great to be back. We got on snow here in Canada in November. We've been racing and training here across Canada, and we're going down to the States next month for some racing. But yeah, just
Where will
set
you
up
be going
environments.
in the States? Where are you going to be going?
We're gonna be going to Lutsen, Minnesota. Just
Minnesota.
on,
Okay,
yeah.
so we may inform some of our Minnesotan Eritreans to come and support or do something there if they like to. We'll give them that option, right? With that said, Shannon, so one of the things that we want to express to people is that the importance of what we're doing in terms of the sport being very non-traditional to our community, right? And we've established that since you started doing it in Innsbruck, but a lot of people still don't understand the connection between winter, snow, all that stuff in Eritrea, and you are the missing link there. And you've really elevated your level of skiing very high in the last 6-7 years. Can you say a little bit about how do you feel now as an athlete, as a skier? Do you feel like you're going to compete at a higher level when you go to Milan?
Yeah, this season, when we built the plan with Riley, we were projected to have way more training, way more races, and to be more mentally prepared for Milan. Beijing was very tight in terms of qualification, didn't have a ton of time on snow. So the results that I put in, were reflective of that. And now with what is going on with my, training and my own ability, I do see that there will be a better result in Milan. We just have to keep going. We just have to keep training and stay in a good head frame for the rest of the season.
And we're seeing the pictures of your training from the last couple of weeks, I guess. And you qualified, I believe, last week. Can you tell us a little bit about how it feels to qualify for your third Olympic? I mean, that's amazing, an amazing feat. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I want to mention to our viewers, Shannon Abada right now, based on the Olympic results, is the best African skier and the best black skier in the world right now. We can say that proudly because that's the truth. And Coach Riley played a big role in that. So Shannon, let's talk a little bit about your qualification in the last week.
Yeah, it really caught me by surprise. Beginning of the month, it was very difficult. Actually, the last couple of months were difficult. Getting back on snow and trying to get back into the process of doing this sport again, being away. Mentally for me, it was very challenging. There were definitely days where I didn't think I could do this, and it was just one step in front of the other. So the first part of the month in January, we went out to Ontario to do some races just outside of Toronto. Those went well, and I think leading into last weekend, there was the thought that this could happen, but I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself. So the day of the race, the first run didn't go as well as planned, and Riley wasn't too impressed. But the second run, I just kind of let it go and I went for it, and the result was much more than I expected, and that secured my qualification. So I still am in a little bit of a shock. I still can't believe that it's happened again. Again, there's so much work that needs to be done. We're not even a year out from the Olympics, and to be qualified already is amazing. It's kind of a weight off my shoulder, but there's still, I still have to train. I still have to get myself ready for a GS qualification, stay healthy, and continue to do what I'm doing. So I'm just trying to keep looking towards the next steps forward. And not trying to be too much and, oh yeah, I qualified. Like, we still have to do the work. There's still work.
Absolutely. Yeah. The work doesn't end until the day of the race. And so with that said, I know Shannon, you've had some challenges. I want to speak on behalf of Shannon because he had communicated this to me on several occasions. He was studying, working hard, trying to get his degree, which he did. Ended up getting a good job and working for a Canadian company, I believe. And I think things changed a little differently in the last few months. And I want to bring that up because you're facing challenges. I know they had a big layoff and you got laid off from your job, and you're handling at least the training and everything else that you're doing with your own funds and some of the support that you're getting here and there, but not much. So with that said, we have really, really. I mean, I mentioned this because you look at teams from different countries. Every one of them have national team support from their countries, their Olympic committees. And so with us, though, with skiing being a very foreign sport and still our country developing and still being under so many problems and sanctions and things like that, Shannon has literally done everything on his own in the last few years. And now he continues to have some challenges. So I know you've started a little campaign, a little fund. I don't want to jump directly to it. We'll talk about it later. But if you could say something about that, the challenges you face and the cost of ski resorts when you go training, these are very, very, very big costs. And so for you, it's a very challenging time. In order for you to be successful, we need the support of our people. And so you have opened up a new GoFundMe account. But with that, it's not just limited to our community, but it's worldwide. So with that, can you please elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so unfortunately in November, I was let go from the engineering job that I had. And for most of my career, I was self-funded, had support from my parents. And so the last Beijing Olympics, I also was mostly self-funded with some sponsors. So coming into the season, like the beginning of the season, when I lost my job, it was kind of a bit jarring. And financially it's been difficult. I've been trying to make do with what I have. So basically going through my savings and trying to continue forward with this. And to be quite honest, in the beginning of January, I was definitely reconsidering whether this was a viable option, just because the costs have started to stack up. It's a sport that I love to do and I enjoy, and I want to share that with other people. But it's coming back was also kind of it was jarring in terms of the costs. So it's equipment costs, it's traveling, it's training fees. I've been fortunate enough to receive some sponsors. So the hill that we work with was fortunate enough to give us a sponsorship this year. So that eliminated some costs. But right now, in terms to travel for some of the races, and as well as my training expenses, they've gone a little bit higher. I'm currently waiting to hear support from the National Olympic Committee. I haven't got any at the moment. I'm hoping something comes through, but it's kind of hit a critical point where I do need support from the community, and I would appreciate that very much.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what we're getting some good feedback here from the public. Riley, so can you elaborate a little bit on the amount of money as a coach? Can you tell us a little bit of the power, the manpower, the other things that go into being a skier in the Olympics? Can you tell us a little bit about the costs and the manpower and the energy and the time and all that put together? Can you just give us a little bit of a picture?
Yeah, it's there's pros and cons to being a small team where it's just Shannon as the athlete, but there's cons too, where the big nations have a lot of support financially and with the whole team behind the athlete. With Shannon, we've got to economize. We've got a smaller team. We stretch the dollars and make them work. And with one athlete, we're able to do that without really taking shortcuts. But there's still, there's the travel, there's race entries. It's not a cheap sport. The equipment is expensive, and it really just all adds up.
Yeah, and luckily the fact that you're in Canada, it helps a lot, because I'm sure if you went some other places, it would be a lot more costly, right?
Yeah, we're really making the dollar stretch. The funding that we have, we're really able to maximize the training. It's great here. We have a home base, so we don't have to spend as much on travel. But there's still you do need to travel for just about every race, and that really does add up.
Absolutely. And Riley, if you could talk a little bit about the quality of training that Shannon is receiving. Is it world class? Is it something that you would be proud of as a coach if you're, like, say, to coach another team that was already in the Olympics? How would you compare it? Just I want people to understand.
Yeah.
I want people to understand the comparison.
Like Shannon said, we're at we're at Panorama BC, which is really the ski racing hub in Canada and one of the hubs in North America. This is where the Canadian national team, American national team, even European national teams come out here to train in the fall. So it's a world-class training venue, and we have their support. We can go out there any day, and
Absolutely.
It's where the best in the world come to train, and we're lucky to be supported by them and be able to call this our home base.
And you should know better, because I remember when we were in Beijing, your sister was on the Canadian team, and she did pretty well, actually. So you are very much aware of the inner workings of what's going on. And Shannon is lucky to have you, and Eritrea is lucky to have you. You are the Eritrean national team coach right now, and serving us in a very kind way without really charging the big monies that many coaches charge, and we appreciate you for that. And you've become an honorary Eritrean. I remember we had a great time in Beijing. So with that said, Shannon, how do you feel right now in terms of your physical? As we saw you working out, you're doing a lot of bodybuilding, you're doing a lot of physio, you're doing a lot of. How do you feel? Do you feel strong?
I do. I feel at probably my best physically. The summer was very difficult because I had to cut down weight. Riley got me into a new discipline, which required me to be a little bit more agile. So I feel good. Physically, have been, again, best shape of my life. I feel good. I'm ready. And I'm just ready to build on that for Milan and see the results that I can produce throughout this season, and then also leading into the Olympics.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back a few years in memory lane in Beijing. You finished, and it was very, very difficult circumstance. I remember the snow was coming down, which on that particular day of the race, I remember Riley and I and all of us, and you were in I believe before Beijing, you were in the 60s, if I recall, in Pyeongchang, right? But in Beijing, you finished in the 30s, in the top 30, in the top 40, and that's a huge improvement, and that's with a very short, limited amount of time of training. So now we're preparing a little bit more. So this could be your last Olympics, and you are going to go hard at it. So what do you say to our people? Would you think that you could do a lot better in terms of results? Do you feel like you're confident enough to that you could do better?
Yes. As you said last time, it was a very short time frame. I think I did maybe like 5 races before Beijing, maybe even less. Training time was probably in total about 3. I'm going to say 3 weeks. That's probably on the low side. Riley can correct me if I'm wrong with that. There wasn't a lot, and I didn't have a lot of time. I was still in school. I was trying to travel, sort logistics, and financially I was strained. But this time, I think we'll have about 100 plus days this season, leading into the Olympics. That adds up, that multiplies. So by the time that we're already at the Olympics, we'll probably be closer to that 100 days, and probably have a close to over 100 starts under my belt. So the experience will be there. The training will be there. The biggest thing is obviously, as I said, staying healthy and continue to do the work. And if all goes well and I continue to do what I do and trust the process, yeah, I don't see why the result wouldn't be what I expect.
Okay, good. I personally thought that you did very well, and a lot of the media interviews we've had, a lot of people really, really looked up to you. Even the other African countries, some of the other countries whose skiing is not big, always came up to us with respect. And I want to touch a little bit on that, because that was part of our public diplomacy that we did in terms of promoting our country. And I forgot to send a picture, but to every Eritrean here, I really want to tell you guys how Shannon was just so amazing, preparing pins with Eritrean flags and so many other things that we were able to exchange and make friends with so many different countries. And the role of this particular sport not being popular in Africa for the most part, in Eritrea particularly, has helped us gain a lot of attraction from a lot of people. So we were able to get media attention, also promote our country in a big way. And so I'll say something in Tigrinya. ከምዚ ሕጂ ዝብሎ ዝፀናሕኩ እዚ ናይ ሓጋይ ስፖርት ከም ትሪእዎ ዘለኹም ሓውና ወድና ሻነን ምስ ኮች ናቱ ኣብዚ መፂኦም ዝዛረቡና ዘለው ብሓፂሩ እታ ግጥሚ ሰሚዕኹማ ኢኹም ግን ብዘይካ እታ ግጥሚ ሻነን ምሳና ከሎ ኣብዚ ነዚ ስፖርት እዚ ንምንታይ ፍሉይ ይገብሮ ኢልኩም እንድሕር ሓቲትኩም ሓጋይ ኣብ ኤርትራ ናይ ስኖ ወይ ናይ ክሳይ የብልናን ሶ ንዓለም ኩሉ ግዜ ፍሉይ ነገር ነቲ ህዝቢ ኣትራክት ይገብር እዩ ሕጂ በዚ ምክንያት እዚ ከዓ ሻነን በቲ ሞይኡ ልክ ከምቲ ናይ ዓለም ኣትሌት ተሳቲፉ ንኤርትራ ኣፍሊጥዋ ትዝክሩ እንድሕር ኮይንኩም ክመፅእ ከሎ ወዲኡ እታ ሬስ ኣነ ባዕለይ ኣብኡ ምስኡ ነርና ኢንተርቪው ንገብሮ ነርና ብጣዕሚ ኢሞሽናል ሞመንት እዩ ነይሩ ኣብ ፌስቡክ ተዘርጊሓ ነይራ ኩሉ ሰብ እንድሕር ሪእዋ ግን እንታይ ክብል ደልየ ዘለኹ እዚ ዝግበር ዘሎ ዓብ ስራሕ ስለ ዝኾነ ከም ትሪእዎ ከቢድ ናይ ስፖርት መደብ ስለ ዝኾነ ኩልኻትኩም ክትሓባብርዎ እታ ናይ ጎፋንሚ ገይርዋ ዘሎ ናብኡ ያ ዳይሬክትሊ ትኸይድ ኣብቲ ናቱ ኣካውንት እሱዩ ኩሉ ተጠቂሙ ኣብቲ ናቱ ጉዳይ ከማልአሉ እዩ እሞ ነተሓባብሮ ህዝቢ ኤርትራ ነዚኣ ብጣዕሚ ኣገዳሲት ስለ ዝኾነት ንሓተኩም ኣለና I'm going to go back to English. Shannon, so you, as an Eritrean, what kind of reactions have you gotten since you came back from Beijing in terms of people around the world, in Canada, and communities everywhere? What kind of reaction have you gotten?
You know, the support has been overwhelming. You know, the encouragement I got from the community, even, you know, when things have been difficult, I'm often reminded of the messages I receive on social media and even the community events that I went to were very surprising. Just the amount of people that were there and just proud that I was able to raise the flag and be present in the Olympics. It meant a lot. So I still am trying to comprehend that because, you know, it's always been a sport that I love to enjoy and I really just wanted to do best for, you know, myself but that has started to, you know, inspire other people. There's, you know, athletes that have reached out to me that want to start doing winter sports. And so it sparked that interest. And that's everything I could ever want is someone else to, you know, say, hey, you know, Shannon looks like me. I could also do that too and not be afraid to push the boundaries of what they think is right.
Absolutely. And one question I wanted to ask you is that you have also now inspired another young man. I recall the last time we had a possible cross-country skier who we tried to kind of like, you know, motivate and work and support. Unfortunately, you know, he was a little bit older, so I don't think he has continued to pursue it, but we still haven't heard from him yet. We're waiting to hear back from him. But we do have another young man now based in Sweden, amazing, and he's trying to do more of a free skiing. What is it, freestyle skiing? Is that what it is? And so can you talk a little bit about him and what kind of inspiration he's gotten from you?
Yeah, so after Beijing, the year after, I was contacted by a man named Ashbel, who's in Sweden, and he wanted to do ski cross, which is a variation of freestyle skiing. It's like ski racing, but you have more terrain and more rules, and you have 4 people on the same track. So he took a leap of faith, and he actually moved here to Calgary in Canada to start training, and he's on track hopefully for 2030. I didn't really anticipate that he would be in it because it's a sport that's very hard. Like I don't do ski cross and I tried it. It's very difficult, but he's been progressing really fast and he seems very motivated. He seems very encouraged to continue doing it. And all I could say is, you know, it made me happy. It made me happy that someone else wants to go forward with this and wants to continue, you know, the path that I laid forward. And who knows, we might have more Winter Olympians in 2030 or 2034, and it would just continue. I do want to see that. I do want to inspire, you know, the younger generation and show them that they can, they can be part of winter sports. It doesn't have to be limited to where they are, geography wise, or let's say, they're a good football player. They can also do bobsled. There's so many different options in life than just, the sport that they are. They can do what I did.
Absolutely. And your future with Team Eritrea is always going to be there because we need your guidance, your support. I mean, you are the visionary who's been to 3. You're going to be a veteran very soon of the Eritrean Winter Olympic team. So what kind of future are you anticipating, and what kind of support would you be getting from the likes of Riley and other people who may be experts in the winter sports?
So in terms of my future, Milan will be my last Olympics. I have kind of made that pretty clear that there's no Olympics after this. Originally, it was Beijing was supposed to be the last one, and we're going to pack it up. But now, Milan's it. Milan will be the last Olympics, and future going wise, I will be there to support in the background, especially for Ashbel. I've made it clear, like, he is now carrying the mantle forward, and I'll do whatever I can to support him, whether that's being with him at races and being at the Olympics. I do want to continue to have that presence consecutively. And so that's sort of my vision, is to help a newer generation of athletes that are younger than me to start building them a good foundation so they can continue.
And the support we're getting from Eritrea is pretty strong. So tell us a little bit about that. The National Olympic Committee is fully invested in you. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the National Olympic Committee, they have been supportive. They've definitely were excited to hear when I qualified for Milan. So they're doing their best of what they can. I'm hoping that I can receive some financial support from them, going forward. But back home, they definitely have been doing the paperwork, and they've been very helpful, this time around, to make sure that we'll have a good, successful campaign in Milan.
Very good. And so let's talk a little bit about you and the way you grew up and how you got into skiing. Even though we've said it a long time ago, we have new generations now that are trying to be inspired. How do you get into? How did you get into the skiing and the winter sports in general? Can you give us a little background on that?
Yeah, so it wasn't initially my choice in the beginning. I grew up in a small town in northern Alberta, called Fort McMurray. That's where my dad and my mom moved to, and where I was born. So my sister was part of the local Girl Guide group, and they went to the ski hill for a day trip. My sister liked it, so she convinced all of us to be in the ski racing program. It didn't really catch my attention. It was very cold outside. I wasn't very good, and most of the time I just wanted to be inside. Like, I had no passion and drive to it until I moved to Calgary about 3-4 years later, and I was exposed to the Rocky Mountain. So that started to kind of put some thoughts in my mind, like, okay, maybe this could be something I could pursue in the future, Olympic wise. I got better training. I was exposed to, more challenging conditions, which allowed me to grow as an athlete. And I think around the time of like 11, 12, I started to, that started to really get in my mind that I did want to go to the Olympics. And, I've continued it ever since. There were times where I did have a little bit of a retirement phase after Pyeongchang. I took some time off to go back to school and kind of reevaluate my life. But skiing has always been there. And, even when I'm done racing, I still will, enjoy the sport as much as I can.
And Riley, if we could talk a little bit about the way in which you got involved with Shannon, just give us a little information. How did you guys meet? How did you get involved with Shannon?
So we were sort of teammates at one point. His coach in 2018, Helmut, was also my coach, and when he elected that he wasn't good to go for Beijing in 2022, he suggested Shannon and I talk about it, and we did. And I think it was a pretty natural fit, because I'd already known him as an athlete before, so it worked out pretty well to kind of start coaching and get involved with what he was doing in that way as well.
So in terms of being an African nation, and in the last Olympic we had like I think 5 or 6 African countries that participated, and Shannon, you coming out the only one to finish, and probably the only black skier to finish in the Olympics. Where do you see the sport growing? Do you feel like there's a lot more growth, or do you think it's kind of sliding back? Maybe people are not interested in it. Can we talk a little bit about the future of skiing in our parts of the world?
Well, it's nice to see that this Olympics there will be more representation from Africa. So there's a few more athletes that actually have qualified for these Olympics. So there will be more representation. In terms of the sport, it is, I think after COVID, things have changed a lot in terms of accessibility and cost. So it has slightly slid back in terms of it being, accessible to just anyone. It was, even for me when I was in, university and I wanted to go skiing for a day, the cost was quite high, which is sad because this is something that, I enjoyed growing up. And I remember many times, like when I was a kid, you can go to the ski hill and it was like $50-$60 for a full day at the mountains. That now is, two times the cost. I'm hoping things will change. I guess like there's also the economical factor of things right now. But I do think in terms of like it being, a sport, I think it will continue to grow in aspects. Like everything, there always will be setback, but it will continue to grow.
So I remember you mentioning to somebody when we were in Beijing about, then I think it was one of the media interviews you did, the 5 Olympic rings represent the continents, right? And you mentioned specifically Africa, and that was a very good message. You had a huge message to it because, we're not African countries, especially countries like Eritrea, we're not getting the big funding to compete against some people who've been around for like decades, right? They've been doing this for a long time. And so in order to expedite the growth, what are we missing, and how could we challenge that? I know I specifically even spoke to one of the head of the Olympic Committee during a Chef de Missions meeting, and I asked a question about specifically related to you, because we are facing a lot of challenges in terms of support and all the things that we were getting, so can you talk a little bit about what needs to be done for the world to understand, so that our audience, our Eritrean audience, can understand maybe a little bit more what needs to be done for us to grow as Africans in the sport?
I think the biggest thing for me is challenging, the cultural aspects. If I'm being honest, the biggest thing, like the comments that my parents had gotten, I did, was that what I did was a very weird sport. Why would I do that? Why would I instead do football or soccer or, something that's more traditional? I think, just being open-minded to the fact that this is something that you can do, and allowing, your kids and the people in the community to know that you are accepted, you can do the sport, you will face challenges in terms of, trying to learn. It probably will open the door more and people will get more involved. I do remember the local community here, the YYC Eritreans, had a ski day actually for a bunch of the Eritrean kids. And they were, I guess originally they were a little bit frightened, but as the day went by, they actually stopped listening to the instructors and they wanted to go on the chairlift and they wanted to go as fast as they can. So they really loved the sport. They really found, enjoyment in skiing, which made me happy. But I think the first thing is it starts with, being open-minded and being okay to allow that in the culture.
Absolutely. And I think the fact that we're away from, obviously, you being in a diaspora, overseas, do you think that plays a role? I know that the Saudi Arabian team were our neighbors in the Olympic Village, and they actually even asked about collaborating together. These kinds of collaborations, you think that could be like maybe an opening doors for maybe anybody who, because we have a lot of great athletes in cycling, and we're fearless. As Eritreans, we do great things, right? So what are the chances of maybe you, Riley, can talk a little bit about, developing more athletes? We don't want to just depend on Shannon and Ashbel, who came here from Sweden. We want to build more athletes and maybe build, on the skiing in Eritrea and other winter sports. What type of athletes does it require to have a team? Riley, if you could touch a little bit on that as a coach.
Well, I don't think it's a sport that requires like a certain body type or physique or physicality like some other sports do. If you look on the World Cup at the highest level, there's every body type is there, every height, weight, strength. Like there's a lot of different ways to be successful in the sport, and it's about using what you have. So I don't think you need to look for a specific mold of athlete. I think one of the big things though is with any sport, it's all about the feeder system. So getting more people involved in the sport, and then as it grows within the community, which may be all around the world, that's where it'd be really great to have, say, a training camp where you bring people together from wherever they are to train for 2 weeks together, and you start to build a little bit more of that. Shannon grew up racing in Canada. Others maybe in some of the Scandinavian countries and around the world, who continue to grow in the sport, bring them together and create that sort of national training group that can work together once or twice a year, even if they're training individually back at home.
Absolutely. With that said, I want to mention, with that said, with what Riley just said, if there are Eritreans watching this show, which I know there will be a lot of Eritreans watching, your kids or some young people who are watching this, if you're interested in doing any kind of winter sport, especially skiing, that kind of thing, please reach out to us and we will try to arrange. We're building an Eritrean national ski team as a collective group. We want to continue the tradition, the legacy of Shannon and other people, because what Shannon has done for Eritrea is just mind-boggling. We got a lot of attention during the Winter Olympics, not in Beijing only, but starting from Innsbruck, and that's way back in 2012. It's been about 12 years now. It seems like yesterday. But Shannon, let's talk a little bit about setting up an Eritrean ski team and how we can work together, and have Riley also as part of the coaching staff and being with us and all that. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to try to go to the questions. If anybody have any questions, and also we're going to post the GoFundMe link so people can see and support you. And so while we're doing that, what are you planning to do with the Eritrean ski team, and how do you want to put it together?
Yeah, so my biggest thing, now that I have a teammate, Ashbel, me and him have been in discussions of, what it looks like going forward. So for him, 2030 would be viable for him to qualify for ski cross. And then, that leaves the door open for another alpine spot. If someone wants to, do alpine, there's also a spot for that. For me, I think that the biggest thing would try to work with the local communities here, and even, the diaspora, try to have some events, bring out the kids, see if, they like it. First introduce the sport, and then, gradually see what kind of, program that we could build. Right now with Ashbel, I've been working very closely with him and one of the local clubs here, so we can make a good program for him that will lead him towards, an Olympic qualification in 5 years' time. So that's sort of the, the plan going forward. And hopefully, our presence, Ashbel and my presence now can, now inspire some younger kids to do this, and then slowly rebuild the foundation of them enjoying the sport, and then gradually, get the community involved, and hopefully, the National Olympic Committee, so they're supported and they can train more.
Very good. Yeah, I think it's important that coming together, framing an idea, and then kind of presenting it to our National Olympic Committee and working continuously, because I'm more concerned about if we don't continue, chances are this will be the last time that something like this would happen, and we don't want that to be the result of that, right? So with that said, ሶሎ እንድሕር ክኢልካ ነታ ናይ ጎፋሚ ሊንክ እንድሕር ኣውፅእ ኣቢልካያሲ ነቲ ሰብ ሜቢ እቲ ሊንክ ትህቦ ንሻነን ክሕግዝዎ Shannon, we're trying to get the link out to the public so that we can...
ምልክት ጽንዓት ምስሊ ኤርትራ መመሊሱ ይዕንብብ ብደረጃ ዓለም ኣፍልጦ ይረክብ ኣለዉ ጀጋኑ ደቃ ንሃገርና ዝሕብኑ ብዝተፈላለዩ ዓውድታት ብብሉፅ ስርሖም ዝእመኑ ባንዴራ ኤርትራ ብምንብልባል ህዝቦም ዘቕስኑ ሓደ ካብኣቶም ሓያሎ መንእሰያት ኣሎ በዓል ሕጹም ማዓንጣ ፈጺሙ ዘይጸዓት ምን ተሃገሩ ክብል ዝበለ ሓፈተ ኣብ ናይ መድረኽ ኦሎምፒክ ንኤርትራ ወኪሉ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ እዋን ተሳቲፉ ብዙሕ ዘይተወርየሉ ሽዑ እኳ ብዙሕ ኣፍልጦ እንተይ ዘይረኸበ ኣብቲ ውድድር ብምስታፉ ጥራይ ንሃገርና ክብሪ ተዋህበ ኣብ ሃገርና ንዘየለ ዓይነት ስፖርት ኤርትራና ብዓለም ንኽትፍለጥ ኢሉ ሓርኮትኮት ካብ ክቱር ፍቕሪ ሃገሩ ተበጊሱ ንኤርትራ ኸስምያ ብምባል ንኹሉ ጠሓሒሱ ባንዴራ ኤርትራ ኣብ ዓለም ኣንበልቢሉ ተመሊሱ እዚ ተባዕ መንእሰይ ሻነን ኣበዳ ይበሃል ኣዝዩ ተሪርን ነካስ ዘይደሃል ኤርትራው ንሕን ሓቦን ካብ ገጹ ዝንበብ ውድድር ምስ ጀመረ ብቕጽበት ይሕንበብ ኣብ ልዕሊ በረድ ሸተት ምባል ወይ ከዓ ስኪንግ ዓይነት ስፖርት ተሳቲፉ ዘይበለ ነግፈረግ ኣብ ነፍሱ መውደቕቲ ኣጋጢምዎ ክንሱ ቃንዝኡ ተጻዊሩ ውድድሩ ዝዛዘመ ንበይኑ እዩ ንሱ መበል 38 ተርታ ሒዙ ኤርትራን ኣፍሪቃን ዘጸውዐ ጅግና እንኮ ኮኸብ ጸሊም ኤርትራዊ ረኺቡ ዝና ቀዳማይ ተሰሪዑ ካብ ኣህጉርና ካብ ሕሉፍ ውድድሩ ተሞክሮ ኣጥርዩ ንሓድሽ ቅድድም ተቐሪቡሎ ዝያዳ ከዓይ ኣድላይ ዝኾነ ምድለዋቱ ኣጽፊፉ ንሚላኖ ኦሎምፒክ ኣለኹልኩም ይብላሎ በኣፉ ዕላምኡ መታንሸትኡ ክወቅዕ ሓገዝና የድልዮ እዩ ምብርታዕ ስለዚ ኤርትራና ብደረጃ ዓለም ክብ ንኽትብል ሕጁን ከም ሞትሩ ኣብ ጎንኻ ኣለናልካ ንበል ብዝተኻእለ መጠን ተኸፊቱ ኣብ ዘሎ ጎፋንድሚ እጃምና ነበርክት ዝላ ኸርኤና ሓደ ስጉሚ ሞራልን ስንቅን ህዝቡ ተቐኒቱ ኣብ ዓወት ከም ዝበጽሕ ከተግብሮ እዩ ክእለቱ ምልክት ጽንዓት ኢኻ ሻነን ኣበዳ ክብሪ ይግባእካ እዩ ኣንታ ጎሚዳ ኣብ ተካይዶ ስፖርታዊ ንጥፈታት ንምንኤልካ ሙሉእ ዓወት
Very nice. And we want to thank Ermias Zarai for doing this poem for Shannon. Sintigrinya literally explains, your situation, your hard work, your dedication for the past many years. And we want to ask respectfully everyone to support Shannon. Very important because, like I said, Shannon recently has lost his job with the Canadian company that he worked for. So until he gets another job, he's literally having to spend a lot of money out of his pocket to train. Like you said, like Riley said, the coach, the cost of those training grounds are very expensive. So we need to support Shannon at a high level. And Shannon, if you could add, you've had some injuries, and I know that you mainly did it to participate in the Olympics. I recall, I believe it was right before Korea, you had a knee injury or something. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because we showed it on the video here, and I want you to talk about the hard work that this is. It's not just a joke. It's not something you sit down and you're just looking good or whatever. You got to put out a lot of effort into this. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so about a year and a half out from my first Olympics in 2018, I had a ski accident and fractured my leg, as well as tore ligaments in my left knee. That required 2 surgeries, an extensive amount of rehabilitation, physiotherapy, going to physio 4 times a week, seeing doctors, getting another surgery, as I mentioned. So it was very difficult to go through that process. And then even getting back on snow, I wasn't allowed back on snow until a year after the accident. And I only had about 8 months to qualify. I managed to qualify in the 3 months since getting back on snow. So it was very difficult. I had many moments where I didn't think this was possible. It was very painful, but I knew that I wanted to go to the Olympics. Like, I knew in my mind that I've set out to do this and I needed to get it done. So this sport is very challenging. It's brutal. I think Riley and I have had a lot of moments where I definitely got frustrated. Like even yesterday, we're trying to do this technical drill, and I was getting very upset about it. So it requires a lot of physical and mental energy. And as I continue to do this sport, I realize that it's not for the wicked. It's definitely requires someone that is dedicated and determined. And I do believe I hold those characteristics, and I do want to succeed. And so any support that I get is really much appreciated.
Right. And you've made history, not only for Eritrea, but for Africa. And as being one of the top skiers to come out of the continent, obviously being, the son of African parents. How about your parents? Can you talk a little bit about them and their support and their patience? And they've been so much alongside you. They've been very supportive of you and your siblings as well. Can you talk a little bit about the Eritrean community that they come from and their values as Eritreans, and you now representing us and being a part of this huge event in the world that nobody expects, coming from Africa, especially because, we don't have any snow there. So can you talk a little bit about your parents and the whole support that you've gotten?
Yeah, my parents have been my biggest supporters since day one. They were there with me in Pyeongchang. Unfortunately, they were not able to come in Beijing, but they've been along this journey from day one, from the time I was injured, traveling to races. My dad travels a lot for work, so he would take time off work just to come, watch me ski race, halfway across the country and try to be there to support me. There was even days where he was there for a week and I maybe talked to him for a total of 30 minutes during that week. But his physical presence was always there. Even this past weekend, when I qualified, my parents drove the 4 hours from Calgary to come watch me race, and then spent the night and went back home just so they knew that I was there. And I think the values that they instilled with me is hard work. And if I'm going to do something, I have to give it 100%. I have to put my mind in it. Even my dad and I were talking at the beginning of January when I was kind of on the fence about what to do. He pretty much was like, well, you're in this now and you have to do it. There's no chance of you backing out now. So I think as Eritreans, like, we're very hardworking, we're very determined. We've gone through a lot of struggles individually, even, my parents, to come here to Canada, the things that they had to do to survive. I think that's sort of the environment I grew up in was, what you put in is what you get out. And I think many Eritreans can speak to that, is that at the end of the day, like, the hard work that we do, whether it's to provide for a family or, to get better in our own lives, that translates in anything.
Absolutely. And Riley, to get you busy a little bit, I know you're. So if Shannon wasn't in Canada, where would you put him as a coach, as someone who knows the sport? I know you guys race together, but you also as a coach and someone who's followed, and your sister's an Olympian. Where would you put Shannon's commitment, dedication, hard work, and his ability in the sport itself, in the skiing? What level would you put? I mean, from thinking about it, do you think that other people would have been in the same situation as him, or you think he's he's worked harder to be where he is right now?
Yeah, I don't think Shannon's taken any shortcuts in kind of the training or preparation. I think, if you look at the work in the gym, I think he stacks up with, the kind of the best in the world there, and in the training and the commitment. I don't think there's any shortcuts being taken at all.
That's great to know, because a lot of people,
that level of commitment, drive, and the work is definitely being put in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I wanted you to share to the audience, is that this is not a joke. This is not just somebody who made, I know there's a quota and all that stuff that people talk about, but I think Shannon has proven himself, and that's what makes him the best skier from Africa, or the best black skier in the world, is because he actually worked for his position and got the points that he got to get to where he was in Beijing. So, being a top 40 skier in the world is not a bad thing. I mean, even a runner or whatever would be proud of that achievement, but being a skier is a big deal. So can you talk a little bit about the level of competition and the quality of athlete that Shannon is?
Yeah, well, I think, one conversation would really sum it up. And that was at the night that he qualified. We were driving away from the race in the car. And he was pretty clear about not being done, not being satisfied, of continuing to put in the work. It's not just about being there, representing the country, at the games. It's about representing to the best that he possibly can. We're a year away, to have already qualified is incredible. But his first reaction to that was, let's keep going. Let's make sure I'm putting on the best that I can. There's a bit of a relief to qualify, but not a satisfied, we've done it yet thing. There's a lot of work left to do, and he was the first one to say that.
And I've asked you that question.
A lot about his approach.
And I've asked you that question in the past when we did an interview. I recall. Do you feel like Shannon could surpass his ranking in terms of next Olympic event? Because he did the last time, and we were very happy. I was very happy because you did tell me that he's going to do better. You were confident, and so now we have 1 year. He's more experienced. Do you feel like he can represent Eritrea very well in the next Olympics in Milan?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll hold off. I'll let Shannon make any promises, but he's definitely putting in the work right now to put in a personal best effort. I see him in training. I see him in racing. I see the good days and the bad. I just see the progression from day to day and week to week, and it's not every day is a good day, but every month, every week, everything is progressing in the right direction, and he's just working towards that. And it's exciting to see. I'll let him make promises, but he's putting in all the work that he needs to do.
Absolutely. And ሰሚዕኹሞ ኣለኹም ሙንሰ ትግርኛ ሰሚዕኹሞ ኣለኹም ኮች ናይ ሻነን ካብቶም ሓደ ብሉፃት ኮች ናይ ዓለም ሓፍቱ ባዕላ ኣብ ናይ ካናዳ ጋንታያ ወሜዳልያ ከመን ወሲዳ ነራ መስለኒ ሕጂ እንታይ ክብለኩም ንሻነን ብጣዕሚ ዘተባብዖን ዝሕግዞን ዘሎ ብዙሕ ገንዘብ ከመን ሓትትን እዩ እቲ ስራሕ ከቢድ እዩ ሶ ንህዝብና ብትግርኛ ዛረበኩም ዘለኹ ነታ ናይ ጎፋንሚ ናይ ሻነን ዳይሬክትሊ ናብኡ እያ ትኸይድ እሱ እዩ ኩሉ እቲ ፊ ዝኸፍሎ ናብኡ እቲ ኩሉ ኣታዊ በጃኹም እንድሕር ክትሕግዝዎ ክኢልኩም ከም ሓደ መንእሰይ ኣነ ባዕለይ ምስኡ ከይደ ስለ ዝረኣኽዎ እንታይ ዓይነት ስራሕ ይሰርሕ ንሃገሩ ኣኽቢሩ ንኤርትራ ብዓለም ኣፀዊዑ ካብቶም ሓደ ሓያላት መንእሰይ ስለ ዝኾነ በጃኹም ካብ ሕጂ ንኒዮ ክሳብ ዝመፅ ዘሎ ሚላን ፅቡቕ ሪላክስ ኮይኑ ክኸይድ ፅቡቕ ዓወት ከማን ከምፅአልና ስለ ዝኽእል ኢልና ንሓስብ ስለ ዝኾንና ክትሓብርዎ ንላበወኩም ማለት እዩ ካልእ ሕቶን መልስን እንድሕር ኣለኩም ብእንግሊሽ ይኹን ብትግርኛ እንዳዕለልና ከለና እንድሕር ሓቲትኩምና ክንሓቶ ንኽእል ኢና ንሻነን ንመጀመርያ ግዜና ረኺብና ድሕሪ ነዊሕ ግዜ ዋላ ነቲ ኮች. So with that said, anybody who has any questions, anything they want to ask while we're going on as we wrap it up, let's take some questions from the community. Meanwhile, please support the GoFundMe that's displayed on the screen in the bottom. Let's start supporting Shannon. I think this is a long-term vision, a long-term support, and whatever happens, I think Shannon has done what he needed to do, and he's going to attempt to do a lot better going forward in Milan. And we have a huge Eritrean community in Milan, so I get excited about the Olympics being in Milan, and we're going to have hopefully a lot of support for you in Italy. So with that said, Solo, if any questions, حطوا ملس زغنا حد نقدر نحل لكم سي كفاتو نتي مايك نتي تلفون كفاتو. Anybody have any questions?
ናይ ፉትቦል ፌደሬሽን ዘሎ ይኹን ወላ ምስ ካልኦት ናይ ስፖርት ካላት ኣብ ኤርትራ ዘለዉ ነተሓበርኩም ይሰርሕ ከም ጋዜጠኛ ከዓ እቲ ታሪክ እቲ ካልእ ኢንፎርሜሽናት ስለ ዘሎ ብኡ ምክንያት ኣብ ብዙሕ ነገራት ይነጥፍ እየ ሶ እዚኣ ብሓፂሩ ክብለካ ይኽእል ናተይ ኢንፎርሜሽን
ሕራይ ኣብ ኦሎምፒክ ሓጋይ ንሓደ ካብ ኦሎምፒካውያን ዝኾነ ንኡስ ናይ ምንሽርታት ዝሳተፍ ሻኖን ኣበዳ ሒዝና ኢና ናብ ቻይና ተጓዒዝና ነርና እሞ ሕራይስከ ከመይ ነይሩ ትውዕሎ?
መጀመርያ እንታይ ክብለካ ብጣዕሚ ዘሐጉስ እዩ ነይሩ ኣብቲ ቻይና ምዃኑ ንምንታይ ቻይና ዓብዪ ምቅርራብ እዮም ገይሮምሉ ነይሮም እዚ ከም ትፈልጦ በዚ ኮቪድ ምክንያት ብዙሕ ነገራት ጠጠው ክብል ነይሩ ቀኒዩ ማለት ዝሓለፈ 3 ዓመት ብዙሕ ነገራት ድሕሪት መሊሱና እዩ ሻነን ከማን ክሳተፍ ኢሉ ዕላማ ኣይነበሮ ነይሩ ግን ኣብ መወዳእታ ንዓይ ደው ኢሉ በጃኻ ማይክ ተሓባበረኒ እስኻ ብዙሕ ኣብ ናይ ስፖርት ነጥፍ ኢኻ ሜቢ ሓደ ነገራት ትሕብረኒ ትኽእል እሞ ኣብቲ ናይ ስፖርት ከምዚ ናይ ሼፍ ሚስዮን ኮይንካ ምሳይ ክትመፅእ ኖሚኔት ገይረካ ኣለኹ ኣነ ከዓ ወል ኣነ ብሃገር ደረጃ እንድሕር ፅቡቅ ኮይኑ ንሃገረይ ክዘልግል ኣለ ሓንቲ ፀገም የብለይን ብምባል ምሻነን ተረዳዲእና ብዙሕ ስራሕ ነይርዎ ላዕለን ታሕትን ምባል እዚ ክብል ከለኹ ከዓ ንናሽናል ኦሎምፒክ ኮሚቲን ብዙሓት ሰባት ኣብ ኤርትራን ኣብ ውሽጥን ኣብ ደገን ዘለው ሰባት ከይመስገንኩም ክሓልፍ ኣይደለይነ ብጣዕሚ ዓብ ነገር እዩ ነይሩ እዚ ኣብ መወዳእታ ምስ ተወደአቲ ኩነታት ምስ ቻይና ምስ በፃሕና ብጣዕሚ ፅቡቅ ዝኾነ ተቀብሎ ተገይሩልና በቲ ሃገር ቻይና ዋላ ብዙሕ በቲ ናይ ሚድያ ኮኔክሽን ዝነበረና ኣነ ከዓ ብዙሓት ሚድያታት ክንዛረብ ክኢልና ንምንታይ ዓብዪ ፓብሊክ ሪሌሽንስ ንሃገርና ንኤርትራ ዘንፀባርቕ ስለዝነበረ ምክንያት ከም ዝበልኩ ከዓ ብጣዕሚ ፅቡቅ ተቀብሎ ተገይሩልና እቲ ሰብ ከዓ ብዙሕ ሳፖርት ገይርና ኣብ ሶሻል ሚድያ ዘሎ ይኹን ዋላ ብደገፍ ኣብ ዘለው ኣብ ኤርትራውያን ኣሕዋትና ብፆትና ኣብ ዘለው ብዙሓት ሰባት ኣጆኹም ኢሎምና ሻነን ከዓ እቲ ዝበለፀ ኣፍሪቃዊ ናይ ኣልፓይን ስኬር ተባሂሉ ወዲኡ ማለት እዩ ዋላ 39 ይወድእ እምበር እቲ ዝበለፀ ኣፍሪቃዊ ወይ ፀሊም ኣልፓይን ስኬር ኮይኑ ወፅኡ እዚ ክንሕበረሉ ዘለና ታሪክ እዩ ማለት እዩ
ሕራይ እስከ ትውድድር ከመይ ነይሩ ብሓፈ
ኦኬ ሶሎ እሞ እንድሕር ሕቶ ዘይብሎም ሰባት ካልእ እንድሕር ኣድላይ ዝኾነ ነገር ኣሎ صحفولنا ሓደ ክልተ ክንህበኩም ኢና meanwhile እታናይ GoFundMe እንድሕር ኣብቲ ታሕቲ ስክሪን ጌርካያ ንሻነን we're going to give him the mic. Shannon, do you have any last words, anything you want to say? And also Riley, as a coach, how do you feel about this and going forward, what do you guys plan to do? And we'll also talk about Ashbel. We'll have Ashbel on maybe another time with you and after we see a little bit of his progress, but he has began his training in Canada. He came all the way from Sweden to Canada, and now he's in Canada with you and training, right? If I'm not mistaken, Shannon?
Yeah, he's not training with me specifically, but he's training near me. We're in basically contact every day. So I see him often. He's in, he's living in my hometown, so he's not quite far from me. I think he's only a 10-minute drive. So yeah, it's good to see his progress, and I hope to see more from it.
So any other things that you want to mention that I haven't asked you? This is 1 hour so far, but we want to go a little bit further and see if anything that we've forgotten. I know we have been around for a long time. It's been a couple of years. So this is 2026 in Milan. Tell us a little bit about what Milan is going to be like.
For me, I think this will be good. I went to Milan actually over the summer to kind of scope the venues and see things out. Yeah, I have a lot of faith that this will go well. It has been difficult. I'm not going to deny that there's definitely been many days where I've that this has been tough. And I've had a lot of doubts, but I'm continuously just putting one step in front of myself and trying to do my best, and I hope that I can be able to raise that flag and put a good result down.
Very good. And I saw Judy and her Judy La. Do you have a question or anything you want to say? We would like to hear from you.
Hi Mike, hi Shannon and Coach Ryle. I'm so proud of you, Shannon, and keep going. All Eritreans on side you. And the Kera እንታይ ክብል ደሊ ማይክ ኦሮሞ መልእኽቲ ክሕልፍ ደሊ ብትግርኛ እንታይ መሲልኩም ደቂ ዕረይ እዚ ሓውናሲ ክንሕግዞ ኣለና ከነተባብዖ ኣለና ምክንያቱ ማለት ከምዚኣቶም ኣሕዋትና ከምዚኦም ዓይነት መንእሰያት ሃገሮም ከፀውዕ ኢሎም ባንዴራና ልክዕ ከምዚ ናይ ቢኒ ማለት እዩ ሕጂ እዚ ሓውና እዚ ከዓ ከምዚ ዝብሎ ዘሎ ብዙሕ ሳፖርት ካባና ስለዝደሊ ይነው ቀሊል ነገር ኣይኮነን ዋላ ሕጂ እዚ ሓውና ሻኖንሲ ኣብዚ ደረጃ ዝክበፅሕ ዋላ ስድራ ቤቱ ድዩ እሱ ድዩ ብዙሕ ዋጋ ከፊሉ እዩ ማለሲ ቀሊል ኣይኮነን ስለዚ ናባና መፅኡ ኣሕዋት ሓጉዙ ንክብለና ከሎ I think ኩላህና ክንሰርሓሉ ክንክእል ኣለና ሳፖርት ክንገብሮ ኣለና ሃገርና ከፀዋዓልና እሞኒ ጥራይ ኣነ ምሻለካ ንሓጉዞ ክብል ኢለ ኣትየ
ብጣዕሚ የመስግነኪ ጁዲ ብጣዕሚ የመስግነኪ እዚኣ ኻነ ንሕና ዝብል ዘለና ንምንታይ እቲ እዚ መንእሰይ ባዕሉ ካብ ጅቡኡ እንዳውፅአ ዝኸፍል ነይሩ ኣይመሓተትኩን ከማን ኢሉኒ ንዓይ ክስታይ ምስ በለ ካብ ስርሑ ምስ ወፅአ ግን ከቢድ ኮይኑዎ ንምንታይ እቲ ካብ ስርሑ ዝክፈሎ ዝነበረ እንዳውፅአ ዝኸፍል ነይሩ ነቲ ትሬኒንግ መብዛሕትኡ ክሳብ እቲ ናይ ኦሎምፒክ ንእሽተይ ሓገዝ ይመፁ ስሕት ኢልካ ግን እሱ ገዲፍካ ብጣዕሚ ከቢድ ዝኾነ ስራሕ እዩ ዝሰርሕ ዘሎ ንሃገር ነታ ባንዴራና ብዓለማዊ ደረጃ ክተንበልብል ምእንቲ ርኢኹሞ ቤይጂንግ ሶ ጁዲ ብጣዕሚ የመስግነኪ እዚ መልእክቲ ዝሃብክዮ ካልኦት ከማን ድሕር ኣለኹም እታ ጎፋንሚ ሴራፕ ተገይራላ ናቱያ ደረክሊ ናብኡ እያ ትኸይድ ንሕና ዋላ ሓንቲ ኢድ የብልና ናብኡ እያ ትኸይድ ደረክሊ ሶ እጃኹም ተሓባብርዎ ሓግዝዎ ቀፅሉ
ኦኬ ሚኪ ኣነ ጁዲ ሓንሳብ ኣነ እውን ኣብ ስራሕ ስለ ዘለኹ ኣጋጣሚ ቴንክ ዩ ሚኪ ሓወይ ከምኡ ከዓ ሻነን ኩላትኩም ተኸታተልቲ ሶል ሚድያ ኣነ ክጉስጉሰሉ እየ ሎሚ ከምዚ ኢሉ ጋሻ ኮይኑ ብምምፁ ብጣዕሚ ፅቡቅ ሚኪ ከምዚ እንዳገበርካ እውን ኣላልየና ቅድሚ ሕጂ እውን ኤርትራ ወኪሉ ኣብ ቻይና ተሳቲፉ ነይሩ እዚ ስፖርት ዓይነት ከዓ ብጣዕሚ ወፃኢታት ዝሓትት እዩ ቀሊል ውድድር ኣይኮነን ኣብቲ በረድ ዘለዎ ቦታ ከይድካ ኢኻ ትሬኒንግ ትገብር ብዙሕ ወፃኢታት እዩ ዝሓትት ስለዚ ኩላትኩም ኤርትራውያን ፕሊስ ሓግዝዎ እዛ ዩቲዩብ ምስ ተዓፅወት ከዓ እቶም ድሕርኩም ትሰምዕዎ ኣብታ ቀዳመይቲ ኮመንቲ ኣብኣ ክጎድፈልኩም እየ ነፍሲ ወከፍ ኤርትራዊ ግን ክሕግዞ ኣለዎ ክበራትዖ ኣለዎ ከምዚ ኣብዚ ቪድዮ ክትሪእዎ ፀናሕኩም እዚ ክዳን ተኸዲንዎ ዘሎ እውን ናይ ኤርትራ እዩ ኤርትራ እሞ ከዓ ብኣፍሪቃ ደረጃ ቀዳማይ ማለት እዩ ሚኪ ተዘይተጋጊ ኣብ ስራሕ እንዳኣተኹ እንዳወፃኹ ክሰምዓካ ፀኒሐ ካብ ኣፍሪቃስ ቀዳማይ ዘሎ ማለት ያ ቀሊል ነገር ኣይኮነን ፕሊስ ኩላትኩም ይሕዋት እዚ ከዓ ኣርኣያ ነዞም ኣብ ዝተወሊዶም ዝዓበዩ ኤርትራውያን እውን ፅቡቅ ኣርኣያ ስለ ዝኾነ ፅቡቅ ኣርኣያ እዩ ኣብዚ ተወሊዶም ዝዓብዩ ዘለዉ ኤርትራውያን ነዚ እንድሕር ዳ ሓብሒብናዮ ነዚ እንድሕር ዳ ፅቡቅ ጌርናዮ ከምዚኦም ሚእቲ ኸነፍሪ ኢና እዚ ቦታ እዚ ከዓ ቀዳምነት ናይ ቀዳምነት ሂቡ ማለት ሽም ኤርትራ ኣብ ምኹላዕ ቀዳማይ ናይ ቀዳማይ ሂቡ ዝሰርሓሉ እሞ በዚ ኣጋጣሚ ሚኪ ሓወይ ከይተሰከፍካ ኣነ ቀፃሊ ኣብቲ ዝኣትዎ ግዜ እተን ገንዘብ ይወሓዳ ይብዝሓ ጎስጓስ ክገብረሉ እየ ቴንክ ዩ ብጣዕሚ እየ ዘመስግነካ ኣብ ስራሕ ስለ ዘለኹ እየ
ብጣዕሚ የመስግነካ ሶሎ ሓወይ እንታይ ክብል ደልየ ምስኣ ትኸይድ ቅድሚ ቤይጂንግ ዝሰዓራ ወዲ ኖርዌይ ነይሩ እሱ ከማን እታ ናይ ቤይጂንግ መዓልቲ ሻነን ክስታይ ዝገበረላ ኣይወድአን ካልኦት ከማን ብዙሓት ኣብ ዓለም ዝፍለጡ ዝነበሩ ስኪየርስ ኣይወድኡን ሻነን ግን ወዲእዋ ነታ ሬስ እቲ ዝወድእኻ ብስትራቴጂ ነዚ ኮች ትሪእዎ ዘለኹም ራይሊ መኺሩ ቀሲልካ እቲ ግዜ ኣትሕቶ ግን ኮንሲስተንት ክትኮን ምእንቲ ኢሉ ስትራቴጂ ኣውፅኡ ኣብ ላዕሊ ወፂና ማለት እዩ ማለት ፅቡቅ ሪዛልት እዩ ንኤርትራ ክብል ይደሊ ግን ኣብ ናቱ እዋን ከዓ ዝሓለፈ ግዜ ከይድ ከሎ ንክልተ ወርሒ ድዩ ገለ ትሬን ገይሩ ቢካዝ ፀገማት ነይርዎ እቲ ናይ ኮቪድ ነይሩ ገለገለ ሕጂ ግን ኦልሬዲ ተቐሪቡ እቲ ሲስተም ፈሊጡ ባዕሉ ከማን ሕጂ ነጊርኩም ኣብ ሚላን ከይዱ ነቲ ቦታ ርኢዩ ብገንዘቡ ይኸይዱ ከማን ነቲ ቦታ ርኢዩ ከመይ ገይሩ ከም ዝሳተፍ ናብ ሚላን ንኤርትራ ፅቡቅ ሪዛልት ከምፅአላ ምስ ዓለማዊ ደረጃ ክትወዳደር ኢሉ ዝገብሮ ስራሕ ስለ ዝኾነ ናይ ኩላትና ግቡእና እዩ ክንሕግዞ ነዚ መንእሰይ እዚ ብጣዕሚ ያነ ብሬኮርድ ክነግረኩም ይኽእል እየ ብጣዕሚ ንፉዕ ዴዲኬትድ ዲስፕሊንድ ሃገራዊ ሃገሩ ዝፈቱ ነቲ ኣፍሪቃውነቱ ብጣዕሚ ዝኮርዐሉ መንእሰይ ስለ ዝኾነ ኣብ ሲኤንኤን ኣፍሪካ ወፂና ነርና ተዛሪቡ እዩ ኣብ ኦሎምፒክ ቻነል ኣብ ኤፒ ኣብ ብዙሕ ቻነላት ኣብ ናይ ቻይና ቴሌቪዥን ከማን መፂና ተዛሪብና ነርና ሕጂ ብጣዕሚ ነዚ መንእሰይ እዚ ኣጆኻ ክንብሎ ስለ ኣድላይ ስለ ኮይኑ ስለ ዝስምዐኒ ብጣዕሚ በዚኣ ይሓተኩ ማለት እዩ ኣን ሓደ ሰብ ኣይትዩና ኣሎ መን ከም ዝኾነ እንዲ ኤኤም ይብል ኣሎ ክትዛረብ ወይ ክሕቶ ንሕር ኣለካ ተዛረብ
Hi, Mike and Shannon and Riley. Glad to see you guys and great works, Mike. Shannon, you are the definition of Eritreanism, and you know that the story that Eritreans have, like, never kneel down. So don't give up, never doubt yourself. And one thing you need to know, in anything, you and only you, Shannon, can put a limit. So if any other person can do it, then you can do it. So keep that spirit. I think you've accomplished a lot. You've finished your studies and you've been competing and you will be competing. So as long as you believe in yourself, you believe in you, that will take you in more higher places. And much appreciation for your coach, Riley. And I live here in Calgary. You don't see me, my face, but you know me, I know you. So just keep that spirit, and that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that beautiful statement that you made, and we thank you. Anybody else who wants to say something, we're also going to open it up. And we'll wrap it up soon, Shannon. I know you guys got to go, but we'll wrap it up. But go ahead. Who's the next person who wanted to say something?
Hi, Mike. Sorry, your detail again. Sorry, battery charge ተገይራትኒያ ወፂ ቻው ከይበልኩኹም እሞኒ በቃ እሱ ትመልእኽተይ ሻሮም ሓወይ ኣጆኻ ኣብ ጎንኻ ኣለና ደቂ ኤረይ ከዓ ክንሕግዞ ክንክእል ኣለና ከምዚ ዓንተይ ዝበልክዎ ዋጋ ንሓደ ኣነ ተፃዋታይ ማይክ ኩዕሶ ዝፃወት ቆልዓ ኣለኒ ሕጂ ይፈልጦ ዋላ ስድራ ቤት ከይተረፈ ንከምዚ ደረጃ ከተብፅሕ ውላትካ ብዙሕ ዋጋ ኢኻ ትኸፍል ማለት እዩ ስለዚ ነዚ ሓውናሲ ከነሕፍሮ የብልናን ሓዋተይ ኢሉ መፂናስ ክንሕግዞ ክንክእል ኣለና ፅዋሕ ንጎ ከዓ ከምቲ ንፈልጦ ከዓ ከምቲ ናይ ቢኒ ጌርና ባንዴራና ዘንበልበልና ከምኡ ከም ንገብር ከዓ መዓልቲ ብልእ እቲ ተስፋ እሞኒ ሶሪ ኣብ መንጎ ወፂ ክተገይረኩም thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Judy. And anybody else that wants to come on and ask a question or two, and then I think we're going to wrap it up. I know it's getting a little, what time is it? It's 2:11. So we'll go up another 5-10 more minutes and we're done. Anybody else who has any questions? While that's going on, I want to say this. Going forward, I remember one time Shannon had requested that he may be going into a different sport, which was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, bobsled. Shannon, why did you change your mind? Can you explain to the public a little bit about why you changed your mind?
Yeah, there was many reasons. I actually got roped into bobsled by an Olympian that I met actually in my first Olympics. It was a fun sport, but the requirements, the equipment, was basically I was starting from ground up. Like it basically was me starting skiing at the age of 3. There was the travel, there was the sled that you have to buy, which is pretty much the cost of a house, or near the cost of a house. And then there was the injury factor, just given the amount of rattling. Like you're in a sled, but your head is moving so much, and seeing people get injured and have some pretty serious side effects later in life, it wasn't something I wanted to risk. And I came back to skiing because that was something with my mind, but also in the early parts of COVID, someone close to me had passed away.
Oh, wow.
And his dad, I had no intention of going to the Olympics at this point. I kind of just given up and was comfortable with the life that I had. His dad had asked me to write his name on my helmet. And I knew I had more in the tank. I didn't leave Pyeongchang very satisfied. It wasn't, looking back now, it was like I cherish those moments, but for me as an athlete, it was not great. And I did not want to continue going on in my life knowing that I had more. And that's why I came back to ski racing.
Absolutely. And now you haven't had enough with Beijing. You're going to Milan, and we are going to make something happen. I feel strongly about it. I know Riley's excited. Riley's all ready to go now. I remember the last time we were rushing, but now we have plenty of time. I know the other two members of our team, Emilio and I forgot who was. So give them all our regards. You know, I think we had a great team in Beijing, and hopefully we'll have a strong team in Milan. With that said, you know, Shannon, if you recall, going back to bobsled, I tried to get about 3 or 4 Eritreans from cycling, former cyclists. I had to talk with them, and I asked them about being a part of your team if you're going to do bobsled. You know, what are the chances of Eritrea also participating? Another last question I'm going to ask, or participating in other winter sports. Do you think that there's a possibility for that?
Yeah, I mean, Ashbel kind of started the whole ski cross trend, which was initially, it was actually against my advice. I wanted him to start off with Alpine, and he's doing great. So I think now there is opportunities to do other sports like skeleton, which is similar to bobsled, but it's a individual sport. We have great runners. We have a great athletic background. We have great cyclists. I think there is room and opportunity to move into different sports. You know, we're talking about it. Probably won't happen overnight. Probably won't happen, the next year, maybe 2, maybe 4. But there will be, in my eyes, there will be more, and it will take some time. But my ultimate goal is to have contenders, that are ready to potentially medal in the next 10 years. Very good. And that's the spirit of Eritrean can-do. We don't want to just participate. We want to go out there and get some results. And that's what we did with cycling. Binyam Gurmai made history this year. You were a history maker. We have Alexander Isak right now doing amazing things in the game of the most beautiful game in the world, right? And so with that said, we're going to wrap. As I wrap, but somebody else just came in. G, who's G? If you have any questions or want to say something, we'll give you the mic for a little bit.
Hello. My name is Gabriel Medhin Tagle.
Hi, Gabriel Medhin. Kamel Laha, Tigrinya, Dardaliha, English, Dardaliha.
Okay. I'm very happy. بتعمي ዝሕጉስ ነገር ኤርትራውያን ከምዚሎም ክወፁ ኣብ ዓለም እዚ ዓይነት ራእዚ ክንርኢ ብጣዕሚ ሕጉሳት ኢና። በዚ ዘይሕጎስ ኤርትራዊ ኣሎ ኢለ ኣነ ኣይኣምንን። ዛስ ዋይ ኤሪትራ ነፃነት ዘየድልያ ሃገር እያ ተባሂላ ንብዙሕ ዘመን ተዓፅያ ዝነበረት እኮ እንታይ ዓይነት ህዝቢ ምዃንና ስለ ንፍለጥ እዩ። ስለዚ እዚ ማዕፆ ምስ ተኸፈተ ኤሪትራ ኣበይ ደረጃ ትኸይደላ፣ ከመይ እዮም ኤርትራውያን ከመይ እዮም ደቂ ኤርትራውያን ብሓቂ ይርእይዎ ኣለዉ፣ ይጠዓሱ ኣለዉ። እቶም ንዓና ንነፃነትና ዓፅዮምና ዝነበሩ ዘይግባእ እኮ እዩ፣ ኣይግባኣን እዩ ነይሩ፣ ዘይትኸውን ሃገር እያ እዚኣ፣ ብዙሕ ትምህርቲ ትምህር ሃገር እያ እዚኣ ኢልና ኣው ኢና ላክ ክንገብራ ነይሩና እብሉ ኣለዉ። ሕጂ ኣብ ገዝኦም ኮይኖም እቶም ንነፃነት ኤርትራ ዓፅዮሞ ዝነበሩ ብዝኾነ መገዲ ግን ፈንጢሓ ተቃሊሻ ክንደይ ድኻምን ፃዕርን ይሕሊፋ ኣብዚ ምብፃሓ እዚ ትራእይ ረእይዎ። እዚ ከይትበፅሕ ኤርትራ ብተፈላለየ መገድታት ኤርትራውያን ኣብ ዓለም ከየንፀባረቑ ኣብ ዓለም ከይረኣዩ ብቕዓቶምን ክእለቶምን ዘለዎም ፃዕርን ድኻምን ከይረአ ኣብ ዓለም ዓብላልነት ከይፍለጥ ከይስማዕ እዚ ነይሩ ትማዕፆ እሞ እንኳዕ ነዚ በቃዕና ኣጀኹም ቀፅሉ ክንቅፅል ኢና ብብዙሕ መገድታት ብሉፃት ኮይና ክንርከብ ኢና ኤርትራውያን ኩላህና ደቅና ንሓግዝ ደቅና ብዙሕ ነገር ክገብሩ ይኽእሉ እዮም እሞ ኩላህና ኣይንዕወትን እቶም ዝፀዓርና ኣብ ተፈላለየ ቦታታት ዘመላለስናዮም ደቅና ኣብ ኩዕሶ ኣብ ካሊእ ኣብ ተፈላለየ ብዙሓት ካብኣቶም ዕውታት ክንረክብ ስለ ንኽእል ቀፃሊ ስድራ ቤት ንስራሕ ኤርትራውያን ኩልሻዕ ክንዕወት ምዃንና ስለ ዝፈልጡ እዮም ዓፅዮምና ነይሮም። ነፃነት ዘይግባእ ሃገር እያ ተባሂላ ተዓፅያ ትነብር ነበረት። ነዚ እያ ኣብ ዓለም ከምዚ ኢልና ደሚቕና ክንርከብ بتعم زحبني مو نحنا نزخونه كم يكقاتم كله كلنا سابورت نقبر كلنا علل نبل كلنا نتحقوس ناي كلنا تقايو يعني اللي يخبر كهزبي
بتعمينا مسكنك تزبلو ناي كلاتنا ريتويو ناي مبزحتنا ريتويو هاجرنا بانديرانا حزبنا قالسنا كله تحاويسو توصيد دمص زلو بعالم بتعمي زغرمي وحدات كوينا كساب كندي بعالم بلصلص نبل رايو بشانن بسكين سنود بحاله بهاجرنا يبلان جن اتي سنا حساب اتي نيحنا ايرتراونت ابزي ابصحيو زودنا تريو زلهم بعالم درجه يفلطنا له كم كالوتم اثليتس غبرو زلو كم بعال بينيام جرماي كم دي بريزيدنت ساس بلو منسيات اللونا معت كفريو زخلو سابورت نغبرون كنكد سزلنا بتعمي يمسكنك تزارب كا زربا كال سب اندحرا له خا حدا خلته حطون ملسن غلن وسيدنا كنا عاصوا كنزازما نبلالنا مو بزيان ودايا Shannon, you have anything to say, or did you understand what we just said?
My screen is rusty, but Yanyele, thank you everyone for your your kind messages and your support. It is always appreciated. It is something that I'm often, as I said, reminded of.
Well, thank you. And Riley, we thank you. Any Tigrinya words you learned, Riley?
I'll have to get studying.
Okay, you better get with the program, all right?
He loves. I was gonna say he loves Shiro.
Shiro.
Yeah, that's his favorite. Yeah.
That helps you go up the mountains, right? It makes you strong, right? The Shiro, huh? It's very good, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're gonna finish our show with this. We want to say a very, very special thank you to Solo Media for allowing us to come here. Also for Ermias Zarai, who made that point for us. We really thank him and all those people who are supporting us. This is an Eritrean event. We're going to Milan. Congratulations, Shannon. Now it's breaking news. You can tell everybody. We broke the news here on Solo Media today officially. You heard it from Shannon. So we have an Winter Olympian in Italy. And with that, I want to say thank you. I think we see a penguin there. Maybe we'll give him the last word, whoever the penguin is. Hello, anybody there? You want to say something? Okay. All right. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. We thank you very much, Shannon. We thank you, Riley. Kuburat Sama'atina, Bitamin Damasgana. زي لومي استقبره مدب كمزيتات ناي سبورت مدب كا حزنا لكم كمسينا كالوت اثليتس كنمصلكم هنا نشانن بتعمي كنحجزو اجوهم هاي نرايلي يقنيلنا نبلو لنا بزي نزازما. Thank you very much and عاودنا حفاش سلام ما يذكر سواتنا.
بجد قلتم زوجي دفين زركز እግዚአብሔር ካባል ሁሉ ይሞ ለዛ ዘውጅ ዚአ ትንኪራ ወይ